on the beat.
Hello, welcome to Empowering Women with Janara Hooks. How's everybody doing today? This evening, we are going to be speaking on a very sensitive subject about abuse in relationships, and abuse mentally and physically.
Introduce you
And today, guess we have Buzz.
No. My name is Yo-Yo.
What?
My name is Yo. No, it say Buzz and guest.
Good evening. Can you introduce yourself for the guests watching?
Hi, everybody. My name is BigYOYO. I'm a music artist and the queen of lit.
What's up, Yo-Yo?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm cool and I'm cool.
So can you explain the way you got into the abusive situation, if you don't mind?
Sure. I had moved to a new area and I was meeting people and I met a guy. We started out being friends and just getting to know each other. I wasn't really interested, didn't really know he had interest in me. But over time, our friendship developed into a relationship over like a year. Um, and we were together. Like we were together a total of 3, almost 4 years. Those first couple years, everything was perfect. We didn't even argue. Like he was the perfect guy. Did everything right. Everything that he was doing that wasn't right, he appeared to have changed it and was just a really awesome guy. And then one day it all changed.
Okay, so about how long into the relationship did the abuse start?
It was 2 years into the relationship. Like I said in the beginning, there were no issues. He was perfect. Um, and then after going out one night, he got upset and he accused me of like flirting with people and just doing more than what was actually going on. And just out of nowhere, he choked me. That was the start. That was the start of the end, and it was real quick. And he apologized real quick, and even I dismissed it in the beginning as just being too drunk and things getting out of control. But in all honesty, that's where it started. It just got worse as time went on. But it was 2 years before he ever showed any signs of being violent.
So, did you see any change in his behavior before the abuse started?
I did. I noticed that he got more possessive and he would want to know where I was at like all the time. The backstory to this is this was sort of at the beginning of my career in entertainment, and it was like the more attention that I got and popularity I got, the more he wanted to just be on top of everything I was doing, everything that I was wearing. Like I couldn't go out dressing fresher than he was. Like he would get jealous if I was able to go and buy simple stuff like clothes, shoes, that sort of thing, and get upset. And it started with him getting irritated with me all the time, and he started leaving the house, and just would be gone because we lived together at this point. But he'd be gone all night, and then like before long, it turned into us getting into it and him leaving to us being at home arguing and fighting all night.
Oh, I didn't know she stopped talking. So was it a everyday thing, or it just happened once in a while?
No, it wasn't every day, and that was a part of the reason why going back and looking at it, it lasted way longer what it should have. I spent a year trying to, from the start of the abuse to the end of it, and trying to get out. Well, a little over a year. Um, it started out. It was the one choking incident, and then it was probably 2 months before he did anything else again, and that was the first time he hit me. Um, and it was an every once in a while type situation, and then by the end of it, it was like every um something was going on, something happened. Prior to the end of the relationship, at one point he had broken my thumb. Like there were times where I just had to hide like for a couple weeks or so to let bruises and stuff go down because nobody knew what was going on. I was afraid to tell anybody and like ashamed to tell anybody and thought I could figure out how to get out. And I even went through that first 6 months figuring, oh, well, it's happened a few times. You know, maybe it's something I am doing, maybe it's something with me. But the more time went on, the worse he got, the more frequent he got. It was like an every week thing by the end of it. Like I was always on guard, didn't know what was going to set him off, when it was going to happen. Just it developed into all the time.
So, can you give us some detailed accounts of the type of abuse you endured while in that relationship?
Yeah. Um,
You need
like
a
I said,
minute?
first,
You need a minute?
no, I'm okay. I'm okay. Um, like I say, it started the first time with him choking me. That next time we were in an argument and I was turning to pull away and he grabbed me, turned me around and slapped me. But by the end of it, it was because I'd never fight back. I don't know, I couldn't fight him back. So it was always like him on the attack and me, trying to get away. But I remember one incident my aunt walked in on, and like he was basically throwing me around the apartment by my neck. He would run, grab me, put me in a chokehold. He choked me until I almost passed out. I end up getting off, or my aunt would like pull him off, and then he go at it again, and like he wouldn't leave, he wouldn't stop. It was like I was trapped. Um, there were incidents where he pushed me down and kicked me. um, the very end of the situation, I had broken up with him and really had just accepted whatever was going to happen with me leaving, what was just going to happen. I've been scared to leave for a while because it seemed like the closer I got to the door and the more he knew I wanted to get away, the worse the attacks got, and the more frequent they got. But that last time, he had came and gotten all of his things out of the apartment, and of course he was texting and calling afterwards. That whole just toxic acting like nothing's wrong, and I'm doing him so wrong by leaving him, and I ignored it. And the last message I got from him um, was, "You think this is over, but it's really not." And at that point, I blocked him. So I go to bed. It's like 2:30 in the morning, and I wake up and he's standing over me. And like my first response was, how did you even get in here? Because I changed the locks after he left. And he just kept telling me, I'm going to hurt you as bad as you're hurting me. And he literally picked me up out of the bed by my throat and started choking me. Um, I was able to get away once and over the bed. And like I'm telling him, I just remember telling him to stop, screaming or whatever, and he just kept coming at me. He would choke me, he punched me. At one point, I had thought about going for my taser because I had bought a taser at this point, just trying to protect myself. I had never used it before or anything like that, but he knew where it was, and he got it out of my purse and dug it into my chest and tased me. I know for a minute or two, because I was able to fight back before then. That's how I ended up getting the injuries that I have now. I've had two back surgeries in the last 2 years with three metal plates put in, and it's due to fighting for my life that night because that night I just knew. I could tell by the look in his eye it was something different. Like he was staring me in my face, like my trying to rip out my throat and telling me, he was gonna hurt me as bad as I was hurting him by leaving him, and that's all he said. And I started crying and screaming out whenever he started tasing me. And one of my kids was there with me. I had two there that night, but one heard me and woke up and came running to the door as he was tasing me and told him that he had called the police. And so he ended up taking the taser away from me and running out the door. But that was the absolute worst of it. But I've had things thrown at me. Like he's like pushed me down and kicked me several times, slapping several times. Like it just got worse and worse to the point where he literally tried to take my life one night because I was trying to leave him.
What was the last straw?
I couldn't hear you.
What type of mental effect did these situations have on you, both temporary and long lasting effects?
Um, after after that last attack, especially, I was afraid to go out of my house by myself. I was afraid to go out. Period. Because this is a guy who was abusive to me, but he was like everybody's friend around town. And really, until they saw it, like nobody believed that he was even capable of doing it. And he had a lot of people convinced that like I was just overreacting, and he really loved me and cared about me. So I ended up in situations where people were trying to set me up to talk to him. And then I knew he was still looking for me because he was on a mission that night to really take my life. So I was afraid to go out. I was afraid to go out by myself. Um, Still to this day, I have issues sleeping at night, especially alone. I have PTSD from it really, really bad. Um, and then just emotionally, like I wasn't able to look myself in the mirror by the end of that situation. Like when I first met him, I was a pretty confident person. Like things weren't perfect, but I'm normally in good spirits, feel really good about myself. But at the end of that, like it was hard to look myself in the face, and it was because I had set up and taken so much abuse for so long, and then I was also confused, and I didn't trust anybody because I slept next to this man and he had been my protector and, provider in the household for 2 years, and then he turned into the enemy. And now I was afraid. It's taken a while for me to be able to even trust anybody, to let anybody in since that situation, because you just never know. And mentally I've been messed up because I mean he showed no signs until he actually did it. And then it was really a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation where, on one hand, he was this great guy, but I mean, behind closed doors, he was a monster. And it was like, I don't know, it just destroyed my faith and my trust in people.
So, when the abuse first happened, why didn't you leave the first time? If you don't mind me asking that question.
You said, why didn't I leave the first time? I didn't leave the first, second, or the third time because, like, a lot of women I found out who go through this, I felt like I was questioning whether it was something that I was doing and something that I could help change. Um, it's a foolish situation, and I would advise no one to stay. My my advice to somebody is the first time it happens, get out because it's only going to get worse. But being in that situation, in that moment, I was confused because this was a man that I loved and a man I thought that loved me, and I just went through figuring out if it's me or if it's him. Maybe it won't happen again. Like maybe we're just really drunk and really angry. I excused the situation. It really stunned and confused me because I'd never been in a situation like that before. I didn't know what to do.
So, how did you keep yourself going while this was going on with being a mother, working, going out in public, certain things like that?
I call it putting on the face. I've always been a private person. I live a public life, but for the most part, I'm private with the details. And at this point, if I was too ashamed and too scared to tell anybody about it, so I would hide until the bruises or scratches went away. Whenever we had got to that point, and I just pretended in public like everything was fine, and I did that until I couldn't anymore. And it was like I really think God intervening towards the end for it to happen in public because I almost feel like I was operating like if nobody's seen it, then it didn't really happen. Um, and then like it was a crazy situation for me to even find myself being in because I was looked at by others as like a strong independent woman, and here I am getting beat up every weekend. And I just, I don't know. It was a fake it till you make it situation. Like, I just put on like nothing was going on. But eventually, like, I couldn't hide it because it changed. Like I said, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I got real depressed. And people said, looking back, they noticed the change. I started getting really angry, and was easily set off. I kind of hid from people, wasn't really, I was around, but not around like I normally was.
So, did anybody ask about the relationship, and what was your
People did.
response?
Whenever people would ask, until it happened in public, I could never admit the abuse. And honestly, I don't know why. Um, I don't know if it was too much shame or I'm not really sure, but I never really admit to it. And like people around us knew that we had issues, because we started fighting in public after a while, but he never actually physically do anything. And so it was like I could talk about everything up until that point, and I would just leave out, the fact that he was hitting me.
So, people say I don't look like what I've been through. What does that mean to you?
Baby, um, that to me means that that's a person that has a lot of scars, a lot of trauma, and it's not always physical. You can go through things and they leave a scar, on your soul and just in your spirit. And like honestly, I feel like I've gone to hell and back, especially with this situation. Because this situation came within a year of me leaving prison. Um, the person that I am today, like just looking at me, you never be able to tell that I was scared to go to sleep in my own bed. That I was afraid to come out of the house by myself. Like you never know that a person tried to take my life because I do my best, considering that I feel like God gave me an opportunity to survive and tell my story and still live. You never know that someone completely broke and destroyed my spirit. Like I I've come so far, and like the few people who do know about this, they're all surprised because nobody really ever just knew what was going on. And then people meeting me now, when I say that it happened, it's like, what? How are you? And it's really by God's grace that I'm even here with the love for myself and the confidence that I have for myself, because that situation made me not only hate him, but I also hated myself. And that's just not the case today. I love me some me. I'd never let that happen again.
So, what type of effects did this have on you, on your outlook on men in general?
Um, it just it just showed me that you can't really judge a book by its cover, and you know you never know what a person is capable of. I don't I don't fear all men, but in the back of my mind, like I know what they're capable of doing physically. Um,
Okay. What point did you realize that enough is enough? Like you didn't want to do it no more.
um, After about that third or fourth time, because he had not only hit me, he had pushed me down, he had kicked me, and like I just knew, like when you're with somebody, whether it's your boyfriend, husband, whoever, like they're supposed to be your protector. They're supposed to be, if something goes down, worst case scenario, who should have your back. And when I started to worry about him more than outside people, I knew it was time to go. And I knew, like, once the first couple times he apologized, but after a while he just stopped apologizing and acted like it was all me. Like I knew it wasn't right, and I couldn't take it anymore. Like I was afraid to go to sleep in my own bed. Like I didn't sleep until he got up and left for work the next morning, and that was just ridiculous. And I knew I had to figure out a way to get out.
You need to take a minute.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Um, what steps did you take to get out of this horrible situation, mentally and physically?
Um, I made many attempts to just get out. I outright tried to break up with him. I tried to make him leave. I did all that, but ultimately, um, I started seeing a therapist that he didn't know about. That was one thing I started doing. Um, because I had gotten to a point where I was actually having suicidal thoughts, and it was stemming from the abuse. And so I reached out, and there I started kind of building up the strength and confidence that I can get away and like do something else, because after a while I thought, nobody's gonna want me after this, if anybody finds out. And he really had like my head messed up that I was this horrible person that made him act out violently. But my first step was going to therapy, and then at the time we were separating bills, so I started saving money and just preparing to do things on my own. And slowly, because we used to do everything together, I just slowly like started making excuses not to go out with him anymore, not to be in certain places, just kind of like systematically break up with him, because whenever I would just abruptly try and break up and separate, he'd always attack me. And like as time went on, it just got worse. And I did all that, and I tried a few things, and he would not let me go. And finally, like I ended up just having to go get a restraining order, and letting the police break us up. Like ultimately it wasn't anything in my control that I could do to get away. I had to get the police involved.
Alright. So, like after the abusive relationship, did you get into any other relationships, or you focus on staying by yourself?
I was by myself for a while. I've had a couple relationships since then. It's been a few years ago, but nothing really serious. I feel like I'm just now in a healed situation to where I can really, be a partner to somebody and really have a healthy relationship. Though the person who came after him, I, I, in all honesty, I really wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to trust. I still had a lot of trust issues, um, and a lot of things that I needed to work through internally. So for the most part, I've been working on me, but I am single. I'm not looking, but I'm open.
Can you take us through the process of no? Can you speak on the change in your life now from when you were in that abusive relationship?
I can breathe, and that's a big thing. And my house is peaceful. Like it had gotten to a point where I didn't even want to be outside of my house and want to be inside of my house. Like there was just so much negative energy and like so many bad memories and just total bad vibes. But I mean now my home is my peaceful place. Like I love being here. I'm not in fear anymore of anybody hurting me. I don't feel bad about myself. I'm not having to walk on eggshells. Like, I can really just breathe and be me and not have to worry about somebody trying to, physically attack me because they're insecure about themselves.
Right. How can others get out of a relationship that abuse that have relationship abuse?
I couldn't hear the first part.
How can others get out of their abusive relationship?
I would advise anybody who's in an abusive relationship is I mean, I would say find somebody to confide in and then plan an escape plan. But in all honesty, with knowing my situation and then having others come and confide in me, afterwards that they've been in the same place, 9 times out of 10, these situations aren't going to end until the police get involved. If somebody's put their hands on you and they won't leave you alone, they won't let you go. They won't let you break up with them. They keep showing up, keep doing it. Just go get a restraining order. Like go file charges. Like that is an illegal thing. People have made being toxic and being in these types of relationships sort of a trend, but it's not. Not only is it not normal, it's illegal. So just go ahead and report it. Don't wait around. I don't really see an that's the safest way to get out of this situation because most of the people who are abusive like that, it goes down to like a controlled narcissistic situation, and you trying to get away and trying to do something better or pointing out that they're doing something wrong on your own, it's gonna make them act out worse. So the best response is to just go get help. You gotta tell somebody. You gotta let the authorities do what they're supposed to do. And I know it's hard when you love somebody and you have feelings for somebody, but in all honesty, if they loved you, they wouldn't be doing that in the first place. And what they're doing is illegal.
Are there other types of abuse other than physical in a relationship?
Most definitely, mental abuse is what most people, mental and emotional abuse is what most people experience. And sometimes, well, I don't know which is worse. I think they're both equivalent. They both can leave the same types of scars. But if my advice and what I tell people, if it's a situation where you're feeling bad about yourself, it's something negative, it's causing some type of sadness, depression, hurt. That's not love, and you should just get out, whether it's physical or emotional.
Okay. That was the last question. I enjoyed this interview with you. I'm sorry that happened to you. I feel like you're really beautiful and you're strong. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you so much for letting me tell my story.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm.
The general.
If somebody ever put
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you get something out of this?
Yeah.
Cause I'm not. Daddy going to prison. But Daddy going to prison for a long, long time. I tell you, you hear me? But
yes,
telling your story, and making yourself vulnerable to both teach the younger generation and bring awareness to what's going on. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. You did good.
I don't know what I was about to say.
662 compound.